Hello and welcome to the IHS Markit office here in Singapore. We recently ran a special edition of the IHS Markit Connect and Learn series with guest speaker Boon Chye Loh, the Chief Executive Officer at the Singapore Exchange and one of the most respected leaders here in Singapore across finance and government. We are delighted to share some excerpts of that session here, including some original insights on topics such as leadership, COVID, and ESG. I'd like to thank Boon Chye once again for agreeing to join us, and I started by asking him for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you to IHS Markit for inviting me. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Boon Chye Loh, I'm the CEO of the Singapore Exchange, and at the Exchange, we want to connect the world to Asia, and when we connect the world to Asia, we want to make sure that financial participants have the opportunity to trade in many countries, many markets, and more importantly, many different asset classes.
We're speaking from Asia today. A number of our colleagues and listeners are from Asia. Any particular advice to those from Asia who are looking to be successful we're obviously an international company, you've had great success, international firms and SGX. Any particular advice to them?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm too well qualified to give advice, but maybe just share a few of those markers or things that came across my career in finance broadly, and I think it's probably applicable in many different areas. One is no role or job is too small. And I remembered many instances in my finance career. It wasn't about the size of the business or the size of the revenue or the size of the P&L. It was really whether you could help the institution to turn around a situation, to improve a particular situation that was so difficult, or even to just get into a market that was not possible. Then let's say sitting on a big revenue, big business, and frankly just clipping the coupons. And I find that typically that has been more meaningful, more impactful in terms of if you've done it well, done it right, you get given the next opportunity. And two, I've also learned along the ways that in any career building or any institutions that I work with, being very open to, especially in a multinational, being very open to ideas, being multicultural, being able to communicate, those are very important career points. And as I said again, if you work for a good company such as IHS Markit or SGX, I'm sure every one of you will get many opportunities thrown along your way. Seize them when it comes. Don't judge it by the size of the role.
A lot of us subscribe to the view that you learn more from your mistakes when you've taken some risk. Have you got any of those instances in your career where you could share with us where you've learned from something you wish you had done differently?
Yes, it still stays with me. This is very much earlier part in my career. As I said, I was interested in financial markets, so I spent quite a bit of time when I first started on the trading floor. Right, the trading floor obviously look very different today, and then with COVID, people are trading from home instead in the office. But I remembered running a risk book, having to deal with colleagues, in particular in the sales area, right? So I'm sure you have product specialists in IHS Markit. You also have sales colleagues. I actually smashed the headset against the screen. I still remember that until today. So I think it's important. I mean, that was the only time ever in my career that I've done that. It stayed with me, and I learned that look, there are better things that you can try and handle and be able to take some of those heat and some of those stress.
Of course, we'll come to COVID, but then several years later, we entered into the financial crisis to 2008, 2009. When you look back on that and the volatility and the dislocation of markets, what did you learn from that period, and how do you think that can help us perhaps deal with other similar dislocations in the future?
It's a few things looking back, and my first learning really was in the '97 financial crisis. That was still not too long into my career. So the first thing that I learned post the episode was we don't know what we don't know. In the financial crisis, interest rate shot up to 3,000%. So just broadly speaking, if you borrowed $1 today, at the end of the month, you had to pay back $3. So that was the kind of extreme that we never saw. Nobody thought you could really get there. And then two, be very willing to change course in any crisis. Things keep moving. And then third, associated with that was, we obviously started in Indonesia then, but part of the big crisis was Malaysia. Malaysia closed its capital markets. It forced through currency capital controls. So the financial markets in Singapore was tried with offshore currency trading, but they froze the currency. Nothing could be converted. I happened to then chair a committee to try and decide how to settle the contracts that were outstanding. What exchange rate do you really have to use? And the lesson learned from that was there was not going to be a right or wrong answer on what rate you could use. So don't miss the forest from the trees. Try and settle with whatever methodology that you could clear the big bulk of any disputes, but yet leave behind enough room for individual dispute to find their own means legally, or arbitration or negotiation. So never take things for granted, be flexible, and try and get the big picture.
Tell us a bit about the role you think Singapore can play, and the opportunity and perhaps the risks for a country like Singapore as we will come out of the crisis.
So I wouldn't dwell too much on the strength of Singapore as a financial hub. I think that's quite close to many of us on this call. We are in the industry here, and obviously I think the fintech opportunities will continue. But I'll touch on two things that I think Singapore is probably better positioned than many, that I think will also be linked to finance. One is because of the brand and trust that Singapore has, and because what the pandemic has shown us, I think sustainability will become even more important, more critical, and I think Singapore will have a good and important role to play. In what ways? I think in the ways where we try and measure, capture, mitigate some of the key risks around sustainability. Climate comes right to the forefront, and I think this could potentially create a whole new industry for Singapore, which will cover not just finance, but clearly many other professional services. And obviously with MAS, the blueprint is out there in terms of creating the hub here as a green finance center. I know many countries, many hubs are trying to do that, but I think we probably have a good proposition to leapfrog and be a leader globally. And then along with that is what COVID has shown us too, and here is in the area of finance. The hub will remain important, but I think having many spokes, many nodes will be important. So I think the opportunity really is for Singapore through digital means, how we connect and allow markets to still function. Many traders, IPOs are done digitally, no physical roadshow. So I think Singapore is probably well positioned to seize that opportunity.